or something? This picture, it isn't just a picture. It looks like 3D.
The first point is the fact you saw the window sequence of this guy standing in front of this time machine, and the fact that it moved them into another dimension of time, and then it allowed them to actually move through that window. And the point I'm trying to make of this movie is that we know in the future time can be relative, or it can be changed by what we see in science fiction, that somehow you can alter whatever's going to happen. But the rock formations from the time travelers relates to the fact that this is where these kids in Idaho transfer had this time machine set up in the future. Now how it gets there, I don't know. They never explained that part of it. But it was just interesting to see them say that somehow between their time present and the future there would be some location where they could transfer or teleport themselves from one location to another, and it would be there. Leaving Earth, trying to recreate another human race on some other planet, and that's why you see these rocket ships in these different sequences. And why it was important for them to bring this up is still questionable, because we're talking different times, like 20 years between each one. Now with time travelers and the journey to the center of time, these were during the 1960s. One was 1964, the other one 1967, so there was a 3-year gap. But again, they're talking about something that's very relative to the time displacement, that they would be fighting against something else or someone else for control of their world, or that they were trying to use a rocket ship to get away from whatever situation they're in, as perilous as it was.
5,000 years.
Now the next sequence is again about Idaho transfer. These kids are continually trying to find some locations where they can more or less repropagate the species on this future Earth, and they'll find remnants of what was humanity before the nuclear wars, and that ties into what would become the subject matter of the day after, because the day after was about nuclear war in America and how afterwards what would we do, how would we survive, and that had references of Idaho transfer. They're in a future time, and that it relates to how humanity survived after they went forward in time after that nuclear war took place. And you see all these different reminiscences, like the car itself is totally saturated in dust, and there's little things in the car that she finds, and all of that again had to do with the fact that this is what we would see later in the day after, that they find old cars burned out or find reminiscences of things in there. And again, all of it ties to the fact that in time travel, you're going to see things that you haven't experienced yet. And you're going to have to figure, as that individual, what do we learn from all of this in our traveling? How do we cope?
This is not a window into the future. This is real. The lab, we have been transported here physically.
A time rift. A warp of the space-time continuum. That matter can pass through.
Travel over 5,000 years in a matter of seconds.
Come on, the condition will deteriorate suddenly. The readings, the new circuits, quickly.
Take off now. Now. Close to 100 cars down there.
The boxcars dealing with the fact that we never saw these bodies upon bodies in the boxcars. I'm also thinking of something else that they were trying to refer to in this segment from Idaho Transfer. The fact that there were so many millions of Jewish people who died in those concentration camps, and they were all transported to where they ended up going through trains that more or less herded all these people in like cattle. And I think that's what they were trying to say in Idaho Transfer, that he found these abandoned boxcars out in the desert, kind of like, and he's like, oh, they more or less were just filled with all these bodies. Visually, I thought of the impression they were in plastic bags, like they were trying to preserve them after the fact that they put them in these boxcars. The nuke console that the girl uses is sort of reminiscent of, I was just thinking of Failsafe. You had the colonel in this situation talking with his Russian counterpart. Do you remember he takes the telephone receiver off, he presses down on the button and is talking? Well, that's reminiscent of this girl pushing this white button to activate time travel for her. That this moved her from present time to the future after the nuclear war, and then she ends up inside this metal underground teleporter, where they then take the clothes out and then they're able to go up top, and then you're in that what's left of the world rock formation type thing, like, you know, it melted the earth and all the rest of it. So that's what they were trying to say in that video segment. I don't show it in this video, but at the end of the Idaho Transfer, the girl makes her way to a highway, and then here comes this family in a futuristic car, and they stop and they throw into the back of it. And essentially, it used her body as a source of fuel for the car. And the kid asked the parents, will we find any more to use? In other words, they were using these kids that were transported into the future as human fuel sources for the future time people who were living beyond this point where, you know, we're seeing it in the film, that we didn't know there were other people who still existed. They were just they were just, you know, eventually randomly showing up on the highway, and here comes all these people. They use them as human fuel sources. So that kind of leaves you wondering, what were they trying to say in that? That they were using mutated human beings and other people that were outside their city to continue using their vehicles for whatever purpose, to get around town or just search between places or going between cities, and they just kind of like found them and threw them in their car and used them as sources of fuel. That was bizarre, okay? But then that was about the Idaho Transfer. So to sum up all of what you're seeing, the last sequence is the girl found something in the bottom of the teleporter at the end of the movie, and she looked down, and I'm showing a picture of myself as a child, and what I'm trying to say in that subject matter where she sees the child in there or something was we all in the future are going to be guinea pigs in time travel for whatever the socialists, the communists decide to use us for, and we have no control over that. That's what the communists, that's what Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff, all the rest of the communists of this country are showing us, that the coronavirus that's totally taking over how we live is just a tantamount to a future event where we all are going to be fodder for whatever the communists, the globalists are going to do to this country, and we have no say-so of what will be used for. And that includes the smallest child to the senior citizen. And that is just really shocking that our society has dropped to that level where we don't value human life. We don't value people's individual freedom or individuality. We don't value that anymore. The millennials keep saying, oh, it's not about you anymore, it's about us, it's about whatever we want to do. Folks, that's the scary part of what I was trying to bring up in this video about time travel. That this is the lifestyle that people believe should exist. That it's all about themselves, it's not about the whole of individual people. That the globalists want it to be this utopia where everybody's seen as equal, but they aren't, because they're taking all of our rights and our freedoms away from us. And they're saying it's more important to give it to the animal or to give it to somebody in a third world country, and then just to say you should pay for all of it because you're an American citizen, and that everything else that's going on is up to the big time people high up in government. It's up to them to decide what should happen to us as people. And that's really, in every video I make, I try to bring out the fact in the end game of any socialists, any communist countries, the end result is always total annihilation. That's why I always show you a nuclear bomb going off. Communism's overall goal is world domination. And that means they'll use anything at their disposal to achieve that goal. And that includes using nuclear war in order to eliminate people they don't approve of, and then make this utopia idea that we will all be better off when the globalists take over and destroy everything else that used to be a part of what we were as humans, as human beings, as a human society. And that's the scariest part of what Barack Obama is about. Destroying who we are, destroying us as individuals, destroying this country. And that's why this attack has been ongoing day after day against President Trump, because they hate the guy for trying to do what's right for this country, and they don't want him to have that right, nor that they will allow us as American citizens to have the right to speak out for ourselves through the social media like YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any other places. That's why the artificial intelligence they use, folks, is destroying us as individuals, because they don't want us to have freedom. They don't want us to have anything. They want to control what we say, what we believe, what we think. And that's why they went after Edward Snowden so absolutely ballistically. They had to shut him up for telling people, this is what your government is doing to you. They're watching you, listening to you. They're manipulating you. They're controlling you. And to this day, the poor guy has to live in Russia because he knows if he ever comes back to America, they're gonna lynch him. And now they're saying, well, we're going to do it to all the rest of them who are still here, who are speaking out the same way that Edward Snowden did. And that's the end game. Our freedoms are not the only thing they're going to eradicate out of our lives. They're going to eradicate us, because that's their goal. Stop you from saying things that they don't approve of or they don't believe is right. And it's up to them to say that. It's not up to us to speak out, because they're going to say, you don't fit the form, the standard, the status quo. You're not believing what we believe in, so therefore you got to be annihilated. You got to be eliminated out of the equation. So for time travel and what it relates to in human existence, whether it ever happens or not is not the point of why science fiction ever brought up time travel. It was trying to give us a precursor examination of what humanity is becoming and what it is now. And that's the scariest part, folks, is that we as individuals are being told that you have no existence except for what the global government tells you you are. And everything else that you want to believe in is up to them to decide if it's going to happen. So I hope this video was informative to you, and I try to put it all together in some way that you could understand it, but this is just the perception of what I'm trying to say in this video. So thanks for watching.
They've reported from around the world, challenged the powerful, and they bring all of this to every story that breaks.
We've got breaking news, and it's good news.
And touches your heart.
How do you even say thank you? Thank you is not big enough.
I made this.
The images shocked the world. Relentless bombings. Stunned survivors.
Hai,